Evelyn Carter had always been the kind of person who filled a room with warmth. A retired school teacher in her early 60s, she was known for her gentle smile, kind heart, and a deep love for the simple joys of life. Her cozy home in a quiet suburb was filled with memories, pictures of her students, family gatherings, and most importantly, Max, her loyal German Shepherd. Max wasn't just a pet, he was family. From the moment Evelyn rescued him as a scared puppy 7 years ago, they had formed an unbreakable bond. On a sunny Tuesday morning, Evelyn woke up feeling a little more tired than usual. She brushed it off, attributing the fatigue to the usual demands of caring for Max in her garden. But when she started experiencing sharp chest pains and shortness of breath, her daughter Clara insisted she visit the doctor immediately. The doctor's office was cold and sterile, a stark contrast to the warmth of Evelyn's world. After a series of tests, Evelyn and Clara sat anxiously in the waiting room. When the oncologist finally entered the room, his expression was grave. Evelyn's heart sank before he even spoke. "I'm so sorry, Evelyn," he said gently. "The tests show an aggressive form of cancer. It's advanced and, unfortunately, there's very little time left. You may have days, maybe a week or two." The words hit Evelyn like a thunderclap. She felt the room spin, her breath catching painfully in her throat. She looked over at Clara, whose eyes were already wet with tears. Evelyn wanted to scream, to fight, but instead she felt numb, as if she were watching this nightmare unfold from outside her own body. That evening, Evelyn returned home, clutching her medical report. The house felt emptier somehow, as if the walls themselves had absorbed the weight of the news. Max greeted her at the door, his tail wagging softly, unaware of the storm inside. But as Evelyn sank onto the couch, the German Shepherd's demeanor shifted. Max quietly settled beside her, resting his heavy head on her lap and gazing up with those soulful brown eyes. It was as if Max sensed the change, something no human had yet dared to say aloud. Evelyn's sobs, though silent, seemed to reach him deeply. He didn't bark or whine. Instead, he stayed there, steadfast and calm, offering a quiet presence that comforted her in a way words never could. Over the next few days, the reality of the diagnosis settled into the household. Clara scrambled to arrange hospice care, while Evelyn tried to find moments of peace amidst the storm. But every time despair threatened to overwhelm her, Max was there, always alert, always near. He followed Evelyn around the house, refusing to eat unless she was awake, and often resting his large head on her chest, as if sharing her pain. Clara noticed strange things. Max would stare intently at Evelyn's chest, sometimes pawing at her gently, and at night he would pace anxiously, barking softly as if trying to communicate. The doctors had prepared the family for the inevitable, but Max seemed to refuse to accept it. One morning, Evelyn woke up to find Max sitting beside her bed, staring at her with an intensity that made her heart ache. She reached out to stroke his fur, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I don't want to leave you, Max," she whispered. "I'm so tired." Max's response was to nuzzle her hand, a small act that somehow made her feel less alone in the vast uncertainty ahead. Despite the looming shadow of death, there was an unspoken determination growing between woman and dog. Max's presence became a lifeline, anchoring Evelyn to the fragile thread of hope that still flickered inside her. Doctors might have said she had days left, but in that moment, surrounded by love and loyalty, Evelyn wasn't ready to give up. And Max, with his quiet, unwavering devotion, was about to show everyone that sometimes the greatest miracles come from the most unexpected places. Max wasn't just a dog to Evelyn. He was a constant companion, a protector, and her closest friend. Their bond was forged through years of shared mornings in the garden, long walks through the neighborhood, and quiet evenings curled up in front of the fireplace. Max had been a shelter puppy, skittish and shy, but Evelyn's gentle hands had brought him out of his shell. Over the years, their connection had deepened beyond words. Now, faced with a future no one dared hope for, Max's devotion became almost otherworldly. The house, once lively and bustling with family, had quieted into a soft, heavy stillness. But Max was always alert. His ears perked to every cough Evelyn tried to stifle, his eyes sharp to every flicker of pain she tried to hide. Clara watched him carefully. "It's like he knows, Mom," she whispered one afternoon as Max pawed gently at Evelyn's chest. Evelyn smiled weakly but nodded. She'd noticed it too. Sometimes Max would lean into her, pressing his large muzzle against her collarbone, as if trying to ease the ache beneath the surface. Every movement Evelyn made was slower now. She struggled with simple tasks that once felt effortless. But Max never left her side. If she shifted in her chair, Max adjusted his position to stay close. When she lay down to rest, he settled his massive head on the edge of the bed, eyes never leaving her face. One chilly evening, Evelyn sat wrapped in a blanket by the window, watching the fading light. Max lay curled at her feet, but suddenly, he stood and walked over to her, placing a large paw gently on her knee. It was a small gesture, but in that moment, Evelyn felt an overwhelming surge of love and connection. It was as if Max was saying, "I'm here. I won't let go." Clara was amazed by the dog's intuition. She began documenting Max's unusual behavior, how he whimpered when Evelyn coughed, how he refused to eat unless she ate first, and how he paced the room whenever Evelyn seemed restless. The bond wasn't just emotional, it was a living thing, growing stronger each day. As Evelyn's condition worsened, Max's role shifted from companion to caretaker. He would gently lick her face when she woke from restless naps, nudge her hand when she drifted too long in sleep, and even bark softly if he sensed a dangerous change in her breathing. The family started joking, softly, reverently, that Max was more than a dog. He was a healer, a guardian. The hospice nurse, who visited regularly, remarked that she'd never seen such a devoted animal. "He's almost like he understands the situation," she said quietly. "He's doing everything he can to help her fight." Despite the prognosis, Evelyn found moments of unexpected joy with Max around. One afternoon, Clara captured a photo of them sitting side by side in the garden, the frail woman smiling gently while Max looked alert and proud. It was a simple scene but carried the weight of a silent promise. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Max's presence also softened the atmosphere for everyone around Evelyn. Family and friends, though devastated, found comfort in watching the pair's unshakable bond. They marveled at Max's quiet strength and Evelyn's courage, bound together like two warriors facing an impossible battle. Even on the toughest days, when Evelyn's body betrayed her and pain threatened to overwhelm, Max's gaze held a steady reassurance. It was more than loyalty. It was love so fierce and pure, it seemed to defy the grim reality the doctors had painted. One night, Clara sat beside her mother and Max, feeling the weight of helplessness creep in. She reached down and stroked Max's head. "You're the best thing she has," she whispered. Max looked up with his deep brown eyes, full of calm determination, as if he understood that his job was more important now than ever. For Evelyn, Max was more than a companion. He was a lifeline in the darkest hours. In a world that had suddenly grown cold and uncertain, his warm presence was a reminder that she wasn't alone. That no matter what the doctors said, she had a powerful ally by her side. And Max was just getting started. The night was unusually quiet, the kind of stillness that pressed heavy on the chest, making every small sound stand out like a shout. Evelyn lay in her bed, fragile and pale, struggling for breath as sharp waves of pain gripped her chest. She tried to stay calm, to breathe slowly, and not alarm Clara, who sat close by, watching every rise and fall of her mother's weakened frame. But the terror was undeniable. Evelyn's breathing grew more labored. Her chest heaved as if trying to fight invisible chains tightening around her lungs. Clara's heart pounded as she grabbed the phone to dial 911. Before she could press the call button, something extraordinary happened. Max, who had been quietly lying at the foot of the bed, suddenly sprang to life. His massive paws thudded softly on the wooden floor as he jumped up beside Evelyn. He began licking her face frantically, nudging her with urgency, and pawing insistently at her chest. Max's eyes, usually warm and calm, were wide and intense, full of a desperate need to help. Clara watched, stunned, as Max's energy seemed to fill the room with life. Evelyn, though gasping for air, responded to Max's urgent ministrations. The dog's constant licking and nudging appeared to ease her struggle, just enough for her to stay conscious, just enough to stabilize her faltering breath. Minutes later, the paramedics arrived. They found Evelyn conscious but struggling. Clara explained how Max had refused to leave her side and had reacted as if he sensed the crisis. The paramedics exchanged looks, surprised by the dog's behavior, and immediately got to work stabilizing Evelyn's condition. They hooked her up to oxygen and took her vital signs. To their amazement, Evelyn's pulse steadied and her oxygen levels improved while Max stayed close by, never leaving her side. One paramedic muttered, "That dog might have saved her tonight." The ambulance ride to the hospital was tense but hopeful. Evelyn clung to consciousness, comforted by Max's presence beside her. Clara held her hand tightly, whispering reassurances, while Max rested his head gently on Evelyn's lap. At the hospital, doctors ran urgent tests. Evelyn was weak, but the crisis had passed for now. Doctors called it a close call, warning that her condition could deteriorate at any moment. Yet Evelyn felt a strange, unexplainable strength within her, fueled not by medicine, but by the fierce loyalty of a four-legged guardian. Back home, the atmosphere shifted. The night of terror became a turning point. Max's role transformed from companion to protector in a new, urgent way. Clara noticed Max watching Evelyn more closely than ever, alert to every cough, every change in her breathing. If Evelyn showed any sign of distress, Max would respond immediately, pacing anxiously or barking softly to alert the family. Evelyn herself was amazed by Max's actions. She had never seen a dog behave with such purpose, such understanding. It was as if Max had taken on the responsibility of watching over her, refusing to let the darkness close in. This night also revealed something deeper about the bond between Evelyn and Max, one that transcended simple affection. It was a connection rooted in empathy, intuition, and a shared will to survive. Max's instincts seemed sharpened by love, his every movement a silent promise. "I will not let you go." Word of the incident spread quietly among the family and friends. Clara shared the story with the hospice nurses and doctors, who were intrigued but cautious. Animal behavior experts might have called it instinct or training, but to Evelyn and Clara, it was something far more profound, a miracle in motion. In the days that followed, Evelyn found herself leaning on Max not just for comfort, but for life itself. His presence became her anchor in the storm, a steady pulse in a world suddenly so uncertain. One evening, as Evelyn rested in her chair, Max settled at her feet and looked up at her with those soulful eyes. Evelyn reached down, stroking his soft fur, and whispered, "Thank you, Max. You're my heart." Max's tail wagged faintly, as if acknowledging her words with silent understanding. That night marked the beginning of a new chapter, one where the unbreakable bond between a woman and her dog would face the impossible, defy expectations, and change everything. Because when doctors said she had days left, Max had already made up his mind. He wasn't ready to say goodbye. The days after that terrifying night passed slowly, each one marked by small battles fought in silence. Evelyn's body was fragile, worn thin by illness and pain, but her spirit, fed by Max's unwavering presence, burned with a quiet, fierce determination. What surprised everyone the most was the change in Evelyn herself. Despite what the doctors had said, she wasn't ready to surrender. Max had become more than just a companion. He was a driving force, a guardian who seemed to pull Evelyn back from the edge of despair. Every morning, as the first rays of sunlight filtered through the curtains, Max would nudge her gently, urging her to get out of bed, to take a step toward life. His eyes, deep and insistent, seemed to say, "Come on, Evelyn. You're stronger than this." One cold morning, Clara helped Evelyn sit up by the window. Max sat nearby, his gaze fixed on her mother waiting. When Evelyn reached for her slippers, Max suddenly stood and started moving toward the door, looking back to make sure she followed. Clara's breath caught. This was the first time Evelyn had shown the will to leave her room in weeks. With Max leading the way and Clara supporting her side, Evelyn took her first unsteady steps toward the front door. The cool air hit her face, sharp and refreshing after days inside. Max stayed close, walking slowly beside her, his presence a steadying anchor. Outside, the garden was quiet and peaceful, bare branches and faded flowers beneath a soft gray sky. Neighbors walking their dogs stopped, watching the scene in awe. They whispered to each other, marveling at the sight of a frail woman being led by a powerful German shepherd who seemed to carry hope itself in his stride. "Look at her," one neighbor said softly. "She's fighting back." Evelyn's heart swelled with a strange mixture of exhaustion and hope. She leaned on Max, feeling his warmth and strength as they moved step by step. For the first time since her diagnosis, she felt a flicker of possibility that maybe, just maybe, she still had more days left to live. Inside, the family noticed a subtle change. Evelyn's color brightened, her eyes regained a glimmer of life, and her conversations, though slow, became more animated. She laughed quietly when Max chased a squirrel in the yard, and even managed to prepare a simple meal with Clara's help. Every small victory was a defiant stand against the shadow that had threatened to consume her. But it wasn't just physical. There was a deep emotional healing taking place, fueled by Max's constant presence and the unspoken bond between them. Evelyn confided in Clara about the moments she felt Max urging her on, pulling her from despair with gentle paws and patient eyes. "I don't know how he does it," Evelyn said one afternoon, her voice trembling with emotion. "It's like Max knows when I'm ready to give up, and he refuses to let me." Clara nodded, tears in her eyes. "He's more than a dog, Mom. He's your guardian." The hospice nurse, who visited regularly, also began to notice the remarkable progress. She recorded improvements in Evelyn's vitals that no one expected. "I've never seen anything like this," she admitted. "It's as if Max's presence is healing her in ways we don't understand." Doctors remained cautious but curious. Scans were ordered, and while the cancer was still present, Evelyn's condition was more stable than predicted. Each report fueled cautious hope within the family, who had come to see Max not just as a pet, but as a partner in Evelyn's fight. That hope was fragile but growing. Evelyn's fight was no longer just against illness. It was a battle against fate itself, and Max was the fierce, silent warrior at her side. One evening, as Evelyn sat by the fire with Max resting his head on her lap, Clara looked at her mother with pride and hope. "We're going to get through this," she said softly. Evelyn smiled, squeezing Max's fur gently. "We already are." With every step Max helped her take, Evelyn was rewriting the story the doctors had written for her. She was fighting back, led by the steady heart of a German shepherd who refused to let go. And together, they were proving that sometimes hope is stronger than any diagnosis. Evelyn's days began to unfold with a new rhythm, gentle and steady, yet charged with a quiet power. Max had become her lifeline in a way no one could have anticipated. It was no longer just about companionship. It was about a kind of healing that went beyond medicine and prognosis. The doctors had warned Clara to prepare for the worst. They had explained that Evelyn's cancer was aggressive, that her body was fragile and time was slipping away. But now, in the sanctuary of her home, surrounded by the gentle hum of everyday life, Evelyn was defying those grim forecasts. Every morning, Max woke Evelyn with a soft nudge and a lick, urging her to greet the day. The simple act of rising from bed, once a monumental task, became easier with Max by her side. His presence calmed the anxiety that often tightened her chest and made her limbs heavy. There was a magic in Max's devotion, a healing power not found in any medicine. Clara often watched in awe as Max responded to Evelyn's moods and pains, adjusting his behavior with an uncanny sensitivity. When Evelyn winced, Max would gently lick the spot. When she seemed restless, he would pace with her, providing steady companionship in the silence. This healing wasn't just physical. Evelyn's spirit, once dimmed by fear and exhaustion, began to glow again. She found herself talking to Max as if he were a trusted confidant, sharing memories, fears, and hopes she hadn't dared voice aloud. Max listened without judgment, his brown eyes reflecting understanding and unwavering support. One afternoon, Evelyn sat in the garden, sunlight filtering through the branches, casting dappled shadows on the ground. Max lay beside her, basking in the warmth. Evelyn reached out to stroke his fur, her fingers trembling with emotion. "Max," she whispered, "you've given me more than I ever thought possible. You saved me." The words felt heavy with truth. The rescue that had once been about saving Max's life had turned into a saving of her own. Clara joined them, tears in her eyes. "Mom, you're a fighter. And Max, he's your miracle." The family began to notice subtle changes. Evelyn's appetite improved, and she even managed to join Clara for short walks around block. Her laughter, soft but genuine, returned during visits from friends and neighbors who came to see the remarkable duo. Max's role expanded beyond comfort. He became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the face of despair, love and loyalty could ignite the will to live. The hospice nurse, skeptical at first, now admitted she was witnessing something extraordinary. "There's a connection here that's hard to explain," she said one day. "Max is more than a pet. He's a healer in his own right." Evelyn herself felt a renewed sense of purpose. With Max's encouragement, she started journaling her thoughts and experiences, hoping her story might inspire others facing similar battles. One night, as Evelyn wrote by the fire, Max curled up at her feet, occasionally lifting his head to glance at her. The warmth of the moment was a balm to her weary soul. She looked down at him, gratitude shining in her eyes. "You're not just my dog, Max. You're my heart." And Max responded with a soft whine and a wag of his tail, as if to say, "Always." This healing power of presence, the steady companionship, the unwavering love, became the foundation of Evelyn's fight against her illness. It was a force stronger than fear, stronger than pain. Together, they were rewriting the story, not as victims of fate, but as warriors bound by a bond that no diagnosis could break. The days stretched forward, each one a testament to the power of love and loyalty, the true medicine that kept Evelyn breathing, fighting, and hoping. The days stretched into weeks, and Evelyn's condition continued to puzzle the doctors. Despite the initial prognosis of only days left, she was still here, alive, breathing, fighting. What nobody expected was that the presence of Max, her German shepherd, seemed to be more than just comforting. It was as if he was somehow helping her heal. One morning, Clara arrived at the house with a small group of medical researchers from a nearby university. They had heard of Evelyn's case through the hospice nurse and wanted to study the remarkable influence Max had on her health. Clara was hesitant at first, but Evelyn, feeling stronger than ever, agreed. The researchers observed quietly as Max stayed close to Evelyn, responding to her needs with a level of attentiveness that was astonishing. They noticed that whenever Max was near, Evelyn's vital signs stabilized. Her heart rate steadied, her breathing smoothed, and her pain seemed to ease. Dr. Harrow, the lead researcher, was fascinated. "There's growing evidence that emotional bonds with animals can improve patient outcomes, but this is something else. Max's presence appears to be having a measurable effect." For Evelyn and Clara, this was more than scientific curiosity. It was proof that the bond they had always believed in was real and powerful. Max wasn't just a companion or protector. He was a partner in Evelyn's healing journey. The days that followed brought renewed energy to the household. Evelyn's spirit soared with each little victory. A longer walk, a stronger step, a clearer mind. Max was always there, a silent sentinel of hope. One afternoon, Evelyn decided to visit her doctor for a routine checkup, something she hadn't been able to do for weeks. Clara brought Max along, and the dog's calm presence seemed to put Evelyn at ease. To everyone's astonishment, the doctor's report was positive. The cancer, while still present, had not advanced. Some of the tumors had even shrunk slightly. The doctor was cautious but hopeful, explaining that Evelyn's body was responding better than expected. Evelyn and Clara exchanged glances filled with disbelief and hope. Could this be the miracle they had been waiting for? Had Max's love and devotion somehow tipped the scales? That evening, Evelyn sat with Max on the porch, watching the sun set in a blaze of orange and pink. She gently stroked his fur, tears glistening in her eyes. "You've given me life, Max. You've given me hope when there was none left." Max looked up, his eyes full of warmth and loyalty, as if he understood every word. But the miracle wasn't just about medicine or science. It was about the healing power of presence, love, and connection. Max's unwavering devotion created a cocoon of comfort and strength around Evelyn, helping her body and soul to fight back. Word of Evelyn's progress spread quietly, inspiring friends and neighbors. They came to see the incredible bond between woman and dog, a living testament to the resilience of hope. Still, the journey was far from over. Evelyn knew the road ahead would be challenging, filled with uncertainty. But now, armed with the unexpected miracle of Max's presence and the support of her family, she was ready to face whatever came next. The doctors had said she had days left, but with Max by her side, Evelyn was rewriting her story. And that story was far from finished. The days that followed the unexpected miracle were filled with a renewed sense of possibility. Evelyn awoke each morning to the soft, familiar nudge of Max's nose, a silent reminder that every day was a new chance. The sun streamed through the windows with a golden promise, as if the world itself was celebrating her fight. Evelyn's recovery was slow but steady, a delicate balance between hope and caution. Each step forward felt like a victory against the odds, and Max was the constant presence, a guardian and friend who refused to let her falter. One crisp morning, Evelyn sat outside on the porch, the air filled with the scent of blooming flowers. Max lay beside her, his powerful body relaxed yet alert. Clara joined them, bringing a warm cup of tea and a smile. "This feels like a new beginning," Clara said softly, watching her mother's bright eyes. Evelyn nodded, her heart lighter than it had been in months. "It's like I've been given a second chance." Max lifted his head, letting out a soft whine, as if to agree. The dog's loyalty was unwavering, his presence a steady heartbeat in the rhythm of Evelyn's renewed life. The family began to make plans, small but meaningful steps toward normalcy. Evelyn wanted to spend more time outdoors, to reconnect with the world beyond her illness. Max's companionship made every walk a joyous event rather than a daunting task. Neighbors noticed the change too. The woman who had once been frail and quiet was now laughing softly with Clara during their daily strolls. Max, ever vigilant, led the way, his tail wagging in quiet triumph. One afternoon, Evelyn received a call from the hospice nurse. The tone was warm and hopeful. "Evelyn, your progress is remarkable. You're defying every expectation. The doctors want to reduce your medication and focus more on your quality of life." Tears welled in Evelyn's eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "I couldn't have done it without Max." That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Evelyn sat by the fireplace, Max resting at her feet. The flames flickered, casting dancing shadows on the walls, mirroring the ups and downs of her journey. She reflected on the path that had brought her here, from the darkest moments of despair to the fragile light of hope. Max had been more than a dog. He was a lifeline, a miracle woven from fur and loyalty. Evelyn reached down, stroking Max's head gently. "You saved me, Max, not just from the illness, but from giving up." Max responded with a soft, contented sigh, as if to say, "I'll always be here." The new dawn wasn't just about survival, it was about living fully, embracing every moment, and cherishing the bond that had given Evelyn strength beyond measure. As night fell, Evelyn felt a deep sense of peace. The journey was far from over, but with Max by her side, she was ready to face whatever the future held. Because some miracles come on four paws and a wagging tail, carrying hope where there once was none. And with that hope, a new dawn was breaking. Time continued its quiet march, but Evelyn's story was no longer measured by the ticking clock of illness. Instead, it was shaped by moments filled with love, resilience, and an unbreakable bond forged between a woman and her German shepherd. Max had become more than a companion. He was family. His steady presence was a constant comfort, a living reminder that Evelyn was not alone in her fight. Every day they spent together was a victory over the shadows that once threatened to engulf her. One afternoon, Clara found Evelyn and Max nestled in the garden, surrounded by blooming flowers and the soft hum of bees. Evelyn's face was serene, her eyes reflecting the peace she had fought so hard to reclaim. "I never thought I'd see this day," Clara whispered, sitting beside her mother. "You've come so far." Evelyn smiled, her hand resting on Max's head. "It wasn't just me. Max saved me in ways I can't even explain. He gave me hope when there was none left." Max lifted his head, eyes shining with loyalty and love, as if understanding every word. The family knew that Evelyn's journey was still ongoing, but the fear that had once loomed so large had softened into cautious optimism. The doctors continued to monitor her condition, but for the first time, their words were hopeful rather than despairing. One evening, as the sun set in a blaze of colors, Eglin sat on the porch, Max by her side. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small notebook, the journal she had started months ago to record her thoughts and experiences. Flipping through the pages, she saw entries filled with fear, pain, hope, and gratitude. The words told the story of a woman who refused to give up, who found strength in the eyes of a dog and love in every small moment. Clara joined her, wrapping an arm around her shoulder. "You've inspired so many, Ma. Your story is a testament to the power of hope." Evelyn nodded, tears glistening. "And to the bond we share with those we love, whether human or animal." Max showed me that even in the darkest times, love can be a lifeline. Max rested his head on Evelyn's knee, his tail wagging softly. In that moment, they were a family united by something deeper than words, an unbreakable connection that transcended illness and fear. As night fell and the stars began to twinkle overhead, Evelyn felt a profound sense of peace. She had fought hard, with Max as her steadfast companion, and together they had rewritten what seemed impossible. No longer defined by the days doctors said she had left, Evelyn was living a life full of meaning and love. And Max, her brave German shepherd, would be by her side, always. Because some bonds are forever, and some miracles walk on four paws.